Welcome once again. My name is Apostle Dr. Ofori-Kuragu. EUCHRESTOS Highly Profitable is the channel that you've been hooked to. I hope you enjoy this experience. We are continuing with this discussion on punctuation marks. I want us to go back to our grammar days and pick some Bible lessons from what the Lord will want us to know. And today our focus is understand the punctuation marks of life. The caution mark or the question mark. The key text is from the book of Genesis chapter number 3 verse 1. And the serpent was more cunning than any beast the Lord had made. He said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of the tree of the garden? You know, when COVID-19 started spreading like wildfire, the health authorities issued several cautions on the dangers of the pandemic and how it could be contained. These cautions and protocols like wearing of nose mask, social distancing, washing of hands regularly, were received with mixed feelings. Whilst millions were dead from the virus, there were several others who could not be bothered and even denied the existence of the virus in any case. Some even questioned the cautions about the virus, and up to date, some are even in the denial mode. There were even some heads of states and government who stood up openly and spoke against the COVID-19 and said that it was nothing to write home about. The Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, who repeatedly dismissed the virus, tested positive in July 2020. Former US President Donald Trump and the wife too also spoke against, and they also tested positive. But others like the Tanzanian President Magufuli, they were not so fortunate. After speaking against the COVID-19, he got infected with the virus and unfortunately he passed on. So when the issue about the threat came out, people were cautioned about the danger that the disease posed. But they came out by introducing question marks. So when the cautions were given, they brought question marks, and that wanted to, as it were, spoil the day for most people. In today's reading, we see God as the creator, putting man in the place of prominence. God put man in the garden and told man in no certain terms that you can eat everything, but of this tree, don't touch it, for the day you eat of it, you shall die. Then comes the devil to tempt Eve. In tempting Eve, the devil introduced a question mark to God's statement to throw doubts on God's caution. The tempter asks, has God indeed said that you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? So when the devil introduced a question mark to God's caution, he wanted to send the woman off guard, and he succeeded. With this strategy, the devil built up an argument that eventually led to the woman disobeying God, taking on the forbidden fruit and giving it to Adam. You know, generally questions are very good. They can serve as a purpose to get things done. Indeed, great minds, by asking questions, generally end up with great things being done for mankind. But when questions are introduced at the wrong time, when the caution is so overwhelming and so pointed and straightforward, when the caution is coming from an authority, then you can see the agenda behind it. So when the caution has been thrown and the caution is so clear, it lacks not in clarity, but questions are being thrown to water down that caution, and we need to be very, very careful. So when people use questions to dehydrate cautions of their inherent strength and purposes, then these questions can be dangerous. So when the caution is there that touch not, eat not, lest you die, when the question begins to challenge the basis of that caution, then know that you are preparing yourself for eventual demolition and disregard for that which God has said. In most cases, people who are filled with mischief throw missiles at certain missions with the aim of getting mistakes out of them. But so doing, they eat at the foundations and prepare those structures for destruction. While the authority of Moses had never been in doubt, Miriam and Aaron is seeking a way to hit at their brother's prophetic credentials, question him, has God indeed spoken only through Moses, as in Numbers chapter 12, verse 1 and 2? No, the question mark for the motive of eroding Moses' authority brought down the anger of God, because it was so clear that Moses had authority, but his siblings began to introduce questions to erode his authority. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, in rising up against Moses and Aaron, asked them this question: why do you exalt yourself above the assembly? Number 16, verse 3. The end result of that rebellion was indeed very tragic. Beloved, we need to accept the fact we cannot be challenged that our God deserves unqualified obedience to his person and authority. His word, which is divine, also demands our unconditional acceptance and obedience. Anytime we enter into the mode we begin to question the veracity, the integrity of God and his infallible word, we set ourselves on the irreversible path of spiritual suicide, which eventually takes away the sap of the God-given life in us. So, this attitude of pride also fatally affects our relationship with God. Because when we begin to question the word which forever is certain in heaven, then gradually we are on the path of self-destruction. The greatest barrier between some people and God's power of omnipotence and omniscience is their supposed claim to have power and knowledge in the sight of God. Beloved, the roadmap to an expected end lies in the hands of God, who knows the end from the beginning. He is the divine architect who knows the structure that he has in mind to raise. We are God's clay in the hands of God the potter. He knows how best to mold us. However, when we begin to question God's wisdom in our pride and haughtiness, we like Paul allowed to lament. Who are you, O human being, to talk back to God? Shall that which is formed say to the one who forms it, why do you make me like this? Romans chapter 9, verse 20 to 21. A democracy of the times in which we are has exalted the unfettered right to question everything into a noble art and science. But let's beware not to send this behavior into matters which concerns a God who we can never understand with our finite minds. In fact, Isaiah clearly captures it by saying that as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are his ways higher than our ways, and his thoughts higher than our thoughts. So when God gives the caution, please don't enter into the mode of trying to question mark him. For as you do so, you set yourself on the path to irreversible self-destruction and into a mode of death. May God forbid. Shalom. My prayer for you is that, Lord, we bless you once again for the gift of life. Teach us and give us the grace of submission, the purpose of that evil habit, and pastime of questioning the sanctity of your power, authority, and knowledge. May God bless you and strengthen you to remain humble in his presence. Shalom.